What's up, everybody? Remi Adeleke here. I took about a week and a half off of social media and just let my assistant run with it. I know I got some messages from some of you saying, Remi, when you gonna post again? Like, I'm looking for something positive. I haven't seen anything from you. Post something. And, I appreciate that. But in all honesty, like, I just needed to step away from social media, right? I needed to not post and just get out there in the world. And in all honesty, I just needed to have some conversations, right? And that's what I've been doing over the last week and a half. I've been having conversations with people that I agree with. I've been having a whole lot more conversations with people I don't agree with. I've been having conversations with people in the middle who, they don't understand both sides, but they want to, and they don't know what's right, they don't know what's wrong. I've been having conversations with police officers. As a matter of fact, I just started giving my phone number out to police officers just so I could, because I want to understand everything. My background is, in the military, I worked in intelligence, right? So part of working in intelligence, you got to understand every aspect of the mission in order to be able to accomplish the mission. So I've had conversations with police officers and activists and old people, young people, everything in between, Christians, non-Christians, like atheists, everything, right? And as I've been having all of these conversations, and specifically the hard conversations with people who I don't agree with, the one thing that I found is that the first step towards unity, right? Because we're in a really divided country right now. So the first step towards unity, if we want it, is gaining some level of understanding from the opposing side, right? If we can understand their point of view, that helps tremendously. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to agree with them, right? Like most of the conversations that I had with people who I disagree with, when we both walked away and went our separate ways, we still didn't really agree. We still, our minds weren't changed, but we had better understanding of each other's perspective, right? And the cool thing about that is through these conversations and through these labs, I want to call it, I've just figured out that if you can understand somebody else's point of view, then you can begin to have empathy. And as you have empathy, then that can lead to unity. That was like the pattern I found in every conversation I had with people who I disagreed with. Understanding led to empathy, and empathy led to unity. Now, some may say, you know what, screw that. Like, I don't want to have a conversation with that type of person. My mind is made up. And listen, real talk, I get that. Like, I'm with you. Like, growing up the way I grew up and you know what, seeing racism firsthand, experiencing it, it's been hard for me to have conversations with people who look me in the face and say there is no such thing as racism. Why is it like that's a hard thing for me? It's like, are you kidding me, right? But I had to have these conversations, right, so that I could understand their point of view a bit, but also so that they can understand my point of view, right? And because if these conversations are not had, then what's the alternative, right? The alternative is we're going to continue to stay divided, right? And the width of the chasm is going to increase. And the wider the chasm, the more potential there is for war. Any kingdom divided by civil war is doomed. The town or family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And some of you may say, you know what? Well, I'm ready for that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm ready for a war. Let's get on. That's what we need. Like nothing is work. We need war here. We need to just destroy everything. And listen, y'all don't want that. Like, real talk, you do not want that. Like, I was born in the country, lived the first 5 years in my country. In that country I was born in. I've been all over the world, worked all over the world. And listen, like, you don't want the division to get so deep that it's led to war, right? And not necessarily physical war, right? But man, like, war in other ways, man. Like, I can't even really explain it, but just war in ways where it's just bad, period. Like, again, main point is some of us may want that, but real talk, we don't want that. And I don't want that, right? And that's why I have to step back and have these conversations, because at the end of the day, I have 3 kids. I got 3 sons, and I got a daughter on the way, right? And I want this environment to be a better place for my children and your children and your children and your children, your children, your grandchildren, right? Like, I want a place where there's equality for everybody, because if we're truly honest with ourselves, like really, really honest with ourselves, reality is there's not, So I don't want my kids or your kids to feel like they can't speak out when there's an injustice. At the same time, I don't want my kids or your kids to feel like they need to be on one side, right? And whatever side they choose, the opposing side is going to ostracize them or call them names or not be able to have conversation with them or label them or all of this stuff. Like, I don't want my kids, your kid, like literally, like, this really, all of this needs to end. And so it may not end in my lifetime, may not end in my kids' lifetime, but I just wanted to I want this environment to just get to that place. Not for me, right? For my kids and your kids. Because at the end of the day, if you can comprehend everything that I'm saying, then most likely you've lived a pretty long life, right? And therefore, it's, in my opinion, it's my duty and your duty and everybody's duty who's of age, to create a better environment where our heirs can do this, can live a long life, right? Like, live a long life, right? So, again, shouting me down and me shouting you down and me calling you names, you calling me names and all that other stuff, like, that's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything. So I want to just encourage everybody to, step away from social media if you feel that too. Like, just step away for a beat, and have some tough conversations, like preferably with your friends who you trust, but at the same time, whose views you oppose, right? Because you trust them, right? You know their heart, they know your heart, and you may be friends, but have those conversations, like not shouting matches, not calling names, but have those conversations with those whose views you oppose, and you'd be surprised at how that can lead to some form of unity if the conversation is done in a tactful, respectful way, and how that conversation can lead to empathy, and then how that empathy can lead to some form of unity. If you don't understand the Black Lives Matter movement or the Black Lives Matter organization, have a conversation with someone like me, because I'm for the Black Lives Matter movement, right? I'm for Black Lives Matter. I'm for Black Stories Matter, Black Justice Matters, Black Business Matters, Black Education Matters, right? Like, I'm for that, because in my opinion, for hundreds of years, Black lives, didn't matter, right? And there's a lot of people who don't understand why a person like me feels this way. So, like, if you don't understand, have a conversation with a person like me. Like, I don't have a time to have conversations with everybody, but have a conversation with somebody like me, like, and maybe, if you can understand that point of view, or my point of view, then maybe you can gain some empathy. That can lead to unity, and vice versa, vice versa as it relates to your stance on Black Lives Matter. If you're not for Colin Kaepernick, and you oppose, Colin Kaepernick's stance that he took, when he was in the NFL, you still oppose his stance of kneeling, and any NFL player that kneels is wrong. Like, have a conversation with a person like me, because you know what? I think I got an interesting perspective on that, because I'm a Black man, but at the same time, I served in the military, right? So, I don't see this disrespect. Like, I support Colin Kaepernick, and I support all those NFL players that take a knee in protest, like peaceful protests, right? I don't see a problem with it. I think that's, at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons why I went and put on a uniform and did the job that I did, so that all people can have the freedoms and the liberty to be able to protest in a peaceful manner. So it just bugs me when people reach out to me and they say, how could you support Colin Kaepernick? And like, I don't get it. I'm like, that's why I did the job that I did. So if you don't understand that, have a conversation with me. And I want to have a conversation with you so that I can kind of understand your point of view. We may not agree at the end, but if we can have that conversation, that can lead to some empathy, which will lead to unity. Even this whole police being defunded thing, like, straight up, I don't understand that. I just don't get it. I don't understand the whole I don't even know what that is going to look like. Like that's crazy to me, because like, who you gonna call if you call 911? Like, who's gonna show up? And you know, in my opinion, the last thing you want is a person like me or other, you know, men and women like me who have the skill sets that we have, having to be the last line of defense, having to be the people to protect our families and our property and our neighborhoods. Like in real talk, you don't want that. Like, you want the buffer, and the buffer is the police. You want them to be called to handle the situation. You do not want me or your average person or the everyday person, especially somebody that's trained the way I'm trained, to be policing my neighborhood. Like, you just don't want that. So, like, I say that to say I don't understand this whole defund the police thing. So I want to understand it. Like, help me to understand. Doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you, but like, I want to understand it. And those are just 3 examples, right? Like again, understanding leads to empathy, and empathy leads to unity. We may not agree by the end of the conversation. Most likely, we probably still won't agree. But if we could just understand each other's point of view, that's what's going to lead to the empathy, and that's what's going to lead to the unity. And that's why I stayed off of social media the last week and a half and just had these conversations so that I could just figure out, like, just how to move forward. Because my mind was just like all over the place. I'm angry at this person, frustrated with this person. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Blessed are the peacemakers. God bless you, love you. And I hope that this helped out.